The quantum formalism coupled with the language of new digital tools is based on non-locality and the uniqueness of the collapse of two indistinguishable bodies. It is framed by Aristotle's three principles and locked in by Alain Aspect's 1982 results, which were Nobelized in October 2022 on the basis of three reasons that I assert are all 100% false. To claim to have reached the solution to the n-body problem, I must demonstrate to you that I have moved beyond formalism through an experiment in irrefutable invariance, revealing a hidden spacetime that escapes in loops physics, reversible equations, and the café du commerce of peoples since 25 centuries. This is my third email alert with proof of reading of each member of the Nobel Committee. You will not be able to say in history, I did not know. Using the more powerful Galilean invariance than your equations, my theory, validated by experiment, shows the limits, predicts and explains the origin of the current generalized decoherence everywhere in the world. One body at rest that superimposes an inertial acceleration on gravity on Earth while showing two distinct observable falls, goes beyond academic knowledge because it will fall in an invariant manner on the forbidden value of 1982 at the fixed point large of Newton, geometrically defined by Albert Einstein before his death, measured by aspect. By observing from a distance with your incomplete formalism, you will be blind to a complex double-fall 100% differentiable that my new physics and thinking experience reveals, which has as its only intricate points its starting point and its end point. If the captain ignores or violates this new local and non-local law of nature, the giver of orders and its institution are merchants of death. You need to join and learn humanly with the Galilean. This fixed point in modern science, wrongly judged in 1982, is located in metaphysical non-local territory, in a spacetime beyond one-half. It is inaccessible to a non-Galilean and protected by one fundamental law that prohibits touching entangled bodies in motion in this spacetime. My new element of reality brings in its small volume of spacetime, its total difference of path that violates the relativities and quantum mechanics. Nature imposes differentiation. Its mere existence requires the abandonment of the new duplication revolution for tools from the infraworld and the logic of encrypted double quantum keys identical. My demonstration, which reverses the conclusions of aspect, says that its technically unassailable truth, even locked statistically to the extreme by more than 40 standard deviations, may be 100% false for nature, and is therefore simply not a truth that can be exported or duplicated outside of your laboratory. By demonstrating that God does not play dice with the universe, but that Alain Aspect, in commenting on one non-local invariant result that surpasses him, has changed the mathematical expectation of connected bodies and events. He has redefined and introduced into the digital and technical language of the last 40 years his real and his true, by forcing nature and humanity to conform, by abandoning their degrees of freedom and hidden private knowledge, for the sole benefit of a legal reality for the market, for the rule of law that uses this technoscience as a growth vector, which can now only be stopped by a true Galilean. Faced with the exponential decoherence underway everywhere and for all subjects, the response time of the Nobel Committee is not that of the usual long-term science, because you are contractually and humanely bound and forced to draw the consequences and adjustments of your errors in the current year. After the usual final presentation to young researchers and the general public in June 2023 on the island of Lindau, if you confirm the validity of the works as being non-aggressive to humanity despite my invariant elements, this will make world's academic science the worst death merchant in history. By ignoring me humanly, the Nobel Committee will then betray the last wishes of Alfred Nobel, who forbade you from reproducing his mistake. In addition to having all false arguments, this Nobel awarded in physics to Alain Aspect is not in its rightful place, because the point he is talking about touches a root subject transversal to all things, to all Nobel disciplines, which as for aspect far exceeds your ability to understand the details and even less to allow you to comment and judge the new invariant elements. Einstein was right in specifying before his death the frontier of extreme influence of the world that he discovered in 1905 and 1915, which goes beyond the +2-2 format expected by John Bell by introducing one local and non-local solution to the many-body problem. Frontier beyond which is one world of massively parallel computing with its degrees of freedom intact ere the speed of light adds up. I have locked it with 2 non-commuting keys, which flawlessly signals the retroactive death merchants for 40 years. And the false scientific luminaries who use 2 identical keys to gorge themselves or shine on TV sets, betraying nature and humanity. Just as in 1632, when encountering a new experiment, science or any other observer will say, "Now I know," while the Galilean will continuously show them an infinity of paths and 100% distinguishable realities, proving that they do not know what they are talking about and the harm they are causing by not staying in their place at 1/2. Radically cutting 2,500 years of philosophical questions about the real and the true it is to have found once again by experience, the only way to prove that humanly to say, "I know," by 2 non-commutative roots. By correctly understanding the same mental image validated by nature, it is to be the only one to have all the mechanisms implied by my equivalence relationship and to be the only guardian of it by being unassailable by any political, academic, legal instance and even less by AI. Contrary to my experience where they are all entangled, having never been able to understand humanly what the preceding invariants imply, you have not integrated them into the formalism. To claim to have touched the door of the many-body problem, I must therefore present to you in a second equivalent language, the higher abstract mathematical framework, which allows your scientific logic to grasp what at least quantum entanglement implies without bias as soon as we claim to want to do natural massively parallel computation. To reintroduce a mental image of the complex isometric immersion by building a bridge between 2 worlds, between local and non-local, regardless of the 2 bodies, the 2 languages, and the subject. This image makes it possible to understand what it means to make an appointment between 2 entangled bodies in motion in the observable reality, like making a fixed appointment without bias in the other quantum dimensions. I remind you that I am a logistics expert with the dual civil and military competence and logician at the heart of the problem of asynchronous-synchronous clocks. This absolute image must finally be able to show by measure, explain and predict the current position of formalism, show humanity the error of aspect, its consequences, and the vital urgency of having to respect the laws of nature in physics. To hope to understand me correctly from a distance, start by mentally replacing Galileo's right fall in strong field by a square and in weak fields one curvilinear fall unknowable by a circle, entangle their roots as strictly equivalent and couple each reality with the differentiable folds of emptiness thanks to origami. I discovered that each body is in 2 bound states indistinguishable for a non-Galilean and that the fundamental laws of nature allow and impose on all dimensions this local and non-local link, so that everyone can transform from -1 + 1 a 2 + 2 even if one is in absolute emptiness. It is this link that Einstein understood in 1955 by redefining one framework extended to formalism, one new field non-local entangled to the value measured by aspect. This Japanese art used by Professor Tadashi Tokita that I optimized, shows, and scientifically allows to build a system of perfect axioms without shadows, which must by watching my videos, allow you to understand how I go from the 2-dimension to the 3-dimension plus, then to the concept of 2 higher topos of growth indique accounting for 2 roots of the language of nature as n first and n-dimensional bodies. I can then in a coherent and consistent complete theory easily demonstrate that physics and mathematics have a very incomplete language that on the basis of aspect, canonically validates 100% false results leading to decoherence and collapse of everything that has been built with, including nature, without being able to become aware of the origin and coupling of their error with the entire terrestrial reference frame. Gödel's 2 theorems are validated in worse. Beyond the frontier, all entangled bodies must at least be able to do this. By prohibiting the non-local value of Einstein, I demonstrate that aspect has played with the dice. He is merchant of real dead by ignorance, dogma of physics and arrogance. Lafron says he killed locally the engine of life at the heart of the Galilean referentials by duplicating everywhere on earth ovens for 40 years. He imposed the limit of his thoughts on humanity outside modern science.
C'est que je raisonne en faisant comme s'il y avait un référentiel absolu, mais à la fin, quand on fait des calculs, on voit que ça n'en dépend pas. Là, je suis un opportuniste sans scrupules, Moi, je le prends où je veux, comme il m'arrange, le référentiel absolu.
Aucune loi physique fondamentale ne l'interdit, parce que si une loi physique fondamentale l'interdit, c'est mal parti. Aucune loi physique fondamentale ne l'interdit. Donc à l'échelle de 40 ans, de toute façon, je peux toujours dire ça, dans 40 ans, on ne viendra pas me le reprocher.
Nature no longer allows you to continue making your consanguineous adjustments in the form of simple summable square sequences. Your mistake is too serious. To claim that you have properly understood me, you must have forged in nature two new 100% distinguishable quantum keys that confirm what I have already said and say infinitely more in a new local non-local framework. Any other solution or silence will result in even more chaos for which you will be humanly accountable. I wish good luck to those who refuse any coherence control of their formalism by an external language that is superior to your reversible equations or axiomatic systems. Alain aspect never really surpassed the initial framework of Galileo, and you have not understood the key point that the Galileans have been trying to describe to you for so many centuries. By going beyond the framework you have condemned the world, because you are historically unable to recognize your faults, and the bias being beyond the quantum boundary, you have no control over the phenomenon. The only solution in June 2023 in Lindau is the one that philosophy has been able to do in 1604 by positioning yourself at one half of reality and truth by decoupling from the market and the damages caused by your falsely quantum tools. In 40 years we have lost 60% of biodiversity. Do you need a drawing from a 10-year-old child to understand my concept of round square? The hidden link between pi and the square root of 2 with two infinite precisions locked by Thierry Origas alone. No, Mr. Alain aspect, you do not take it as you want my absolute reference, you bend to its laws or you become the greatest merchant of real dead in the history of humanity. Bringing with you, like all dictatorial languages, 100% of the physicists and theoretical mathematicians of the planet. It is vital to reconnect with the fundamental laws of nature and not seek to obscure them. The market encourages maximum spreads for one camp. My theory imposes 100% gains for the two opposite camps without touching nature. With zero deviations. As long as you do not renounce the three principles of Aristotle and your results of 1982, this science that twists reality can guarantee the global insurance system. At one half, no point is insurable outside the laws of nature. Those who advance alone like eavesdroppers off my data without entanglement, violating a fundamental law, pay alone the totality of the collegial damage, retroactively for 40 last years. By rejecting my invariant arguments as control of the coherence of the language of science, you are changing your initial mission and allowing this technoscience to go beyond its boundaries, to violate a fundamental law, and to play with God's dice by modifying natural chance on all digitized subjects. You are bending the laws of nature to serve a minority that finances you, by killing the natural mechanism of life on Earth and replacing it with your technical truths that have none of the required equivalence properties of the non-commutative language of nature. After June 2023, your science that has never understood the invariance that created modern science in 1632, will plunge the world into hell by duplicating its ovens. Making the thinkers of the Third Reich look like innocent children compared to your betrayal. The rule of law and all supranational or commercial meta-societies that rely on your digital truths will be cold dictatorships, everywhere forcing war without a fair solution between the roots of two incompatible, consanguineous languages that refuse to be 100% differentiable and strictly equivalent to each other at the same time. By understanding the 4 points of this image, you will understand better than anyone what it means to be human and dead at the same time. But it will be too late. Because you will be the dogs of shame, that nothing will rehabilitate. Modern science has nothing to do with the observation of a flat technical result, by duplicating Aristotelian error in 1982 by Alain Aspect, then in 2022 and 2023 by the Nobel Committee. The proof will be made that your language incapable of learning is 100% incompatible in its current state with the superior language of nature and any idea of shared progress by equivalences. Only Galileo, who was able to show the deception and the one who broke the boundary, can transmit to the world the subtle error never to be committed. You still have the power to change the current trajectory of the world. Take my hand in the non-local territory of modern science.
In other words, to finally conform to the language of nature, no language, and especially not physics, can escape the need to freely accept quantified exchanges at one-half, or to disappear into ignorance in its own oven. Touching the n-body's problems is the only way to show the way to avoid reproducing the ultraviolet disaster that you have validated for duplication without seeing and understanding anything about the non-local link. After 40 years of chaos, you are not allowed to delete the only value twice square root of 2 that escapes chaos. Any natural spacetime, concept or digital language 100% locked by 100% reversible equations presented as progress is actually a final solution to life on Earth.
Go beyond the fundamental subject that touches the aspect experience. The 3 points retained by the Nobel Committee put the world in an oven. First point, this model of entangled photon destroys everywhere the superpositions of states, the degrees of freedom that life needs on Earth. Second point, the measurement of Einstein's thought gives the exact coordinates of the only non-local fixed point, which cancels point by point all deviations and path differences. Einstein was right, science has not understood anything for 2,500 years. And third point, this science of quantum information and its tools impose war between two incompatible camps, already visible everywhere. It is a science of the violating the forbidden border and of the generalized theft of other people's ideas.